Hello, everyone. It's W.E. DeCruz. It is such a pleasure to be here today to lend my voice to your ear. Thank you so much, Dr. Shannon, for extending the invitation for me to share. And so we have but 20 minutes to get into some depth. So I won't take too long, but today I'm going to walk you through some concepts. Um, I believe that you are not limited by the proximity of your current location, but by the principles you do not practice. And so I'm going to walk you through how do you take your big vision from local to global. Over the years, I have acquired the name the Digital Diplomat because of much of my work around building local and global economies through digitalization. My number one principle in life is to live at the level of your consciousness and never at the level of your circumstances. Today, I can stand proudly and say that my name is Wendy Akua DeCruz, or W.E. DeCruz, as I preferably am called. I am a wife of more than 12 years, a mother of three. I'm a senior international consultant for the United Nations through my work at the VGC Group. I am an award-winning tech and food founder. I'm also a doctoral student who will be graduating this May with my doctoral degree, so soon to be Dr. W.E. DeCruz. And I sit on a number of federal, local, and state advisory committees, as well as I am an appointed U.S. State Department global speaker. Now, I can say that confidently today, but honey, we know that even though the vision is clear, the journey is blurry. And so my journey is really about how I have navigated, how the Holy Spirit has taken me on this journey from unemployed to employer, understanding that humility always precedes honor. You see, at the age of 24, I was on the road to fulfilling my dreams at Seton Hall University. I didn't receive just one full tuition scholarship. Honey, I had two full tuition scholarships. And in those two full tuition scholarships, I completed an undergraduate degree and two masters, all within 7 years. But despite the accolades, despite the networking, despite the power base I was connected to, I found myself, like most people in this generation today, unemployed. And so after applying to government support, I decided if they won't hire me, I will hire myself. And that is when the Lord began to teach me to lose the title and win the experience. And so that was the onset of becoming the digital diplomat. I soon after partnered with Dr. Naomi Jordan Cook and co-founded the Virtual Global Consulting Group. Today, we are a boutique IT company that is using AI-driven technologies to help people like you become virtually global. Much of our work spans multiple countries, and we are still in existence today after a decade of business. And it was Dr. Naomi Jordan Cook's father, my archbishop, our spiritual leader, who taught us in that season that consciousness is the first form of currency. Consciousness is the first form of currency. And so Dr. Naomi Jordan Cook and I began to think to ourselves, like, okay, what does that paradigm shift look like? And for us, it was shifting from being a consumer to a producer through digital ecosystems. You know, wealth is like oxygen. It's all around us. The difference between someone who is wealthy and someone who's poor is the system that they build for themselves. You live at the level of system that you are willing to build for yourself. And so we started looking at digital ecosystems, and to build systems for people to really create and live into the wealth that was destined for them. And so I'm going to go into some of the strategies that we've used over the years to expand us from being just a New Jersey based tech company to expanding really internationally to some of these countries that you see behind me. So let's get right into that. Let's get right into that. But before I do, I want to share a framework that I've been developing in my doctoral program called the triangular trade of transactions. And this is something that Naomi and I were inherently doing, but I've been able to put language to it as part of my dissertation. And really, what the triangular trade of transactions says is that if you want to navigate life, you generally need to know how to trade, value, and transact within three things: people, policies, and processes, or I also call it talents, terms, and techniques. And so you need to effectively be able to navigate this interconnected dynamic of people, policies, and processes, or talents, terms, and techniques. Now, I won't get into it too deeply today. I'm going to teach you more of how to expand your international footprint. But understanding that when you talk about people or talents, you have to learn how to engage and mobilize people on your behalf. When you talk about terms or policies, you have to know how to identify, adapt, and really influence the policies, the structures, and to create the environments that make it conducive for you to show up optimally. And then there's techniques or processes. This is really where the technology is anchored into. And this is idea that you not only need to leverage, but know how to build technologies and these systems and these processes that make it available for you to be duplicable, like to duplicate your strengths. And so I believe that this interconnected triangle of of talents, terms, and techniques, or people, policies, and processes, is what would allow you to live powerfully on a purpose-driven life. And so we won't get into that, but I want to talk about a concept called citizen diplomacy. Citizen diplomacy. It might be the first time that you're hearing about this, but this is how you activate grassroots global relations. Let me tell you what I mean by that. So, citizen diplomacy is at the heart of every diplomatic effort you could think of. It is a principle that empowers everyday people like you to play a bigger part in a global dialogue, in a global dialogue. So, diplomacy, by definition, is the art, the science, and the means by which nations, groups, and individuals conduct their affairs in ways to safeguard their interests and promote their political, economic, cultural, or scientific relations while maintaining peaceful relationships, right? Cool. That's diplomacy. Citizen diplomacy is the idea that individuals like you and I have the right and responsibility to help shape foreign relations through person to person interactions with citizens of other countries. So it takes the onus of what happens around you, what happens to you, from some person or some leader in a seat far away in some political office in DC or New York or in your local office, to you, everyday you, business person, teacher, healthcare provider, whatever your profession is, to take onus and responsibility in how you engage with people from different places around the world to foster economic development and unity. And so that leads me to ask you, what conversations are you in? Right? What conversations are you in? And ask yourself this: what conversations are you in? Right? Most people think that they're playing a big game, but they're actually spectators on a bench talking about the game that's happening in front of them. And the best way for you to figure out and identify, are you on the game of life? Are you on the court of life? Or if you're a spectator on the bench, is to ask yourself, what conversations am I in? So what conversations are you in now on a local, state, federal, or international level? There's layers to this, okay? There's layers. And so when you look at grassroots strategies, there's some things I want to bring to mind. We won't get deep into it, but I want to bring this to your attention. You want to be looking at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. This is like the global Bible. Irrespective of what nations believe, whether they like each other or they not, this is like the one article of content that all, if not many, support, and in their own different ways are mobilizing different national and local initiatives to support and meet these global goals. But the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are very important, because what you're looking to do, you can assess it according to these 17 goals and really understand if you're in a global conversation or not. For someone like myself who really deals with Africa, I look at a lot of the regional goals. And so you have the global goals for like the world global goals. Then also regionally, country by country, there are additional goals or agendas that reflect these larger goals that you can also look into or start from there. And so there's a 2030 agenda for sustainable development. We have in Africa a 2063 agenda, which reflects a lot of these 17 sustainable development goals. And you want to also look at the different U.S. government departments and agencies, for example, for those who are U.S. based that are listening to this teaching today, to identify who are your partners, who are your stakeholders, and so forth. And I'll get into it a little bit more to kind of break it down to you and what I mean by that. And so what I'll do is, when you identify or decide what goal you're achieving within these 17 development goals, and I'm going to see if I can open this Um, if I can open this, I'm not sure if I can open it or not. But when you open it, you'll see that there are 17 goals that range from healthcare to economic development to job creation, youth mobilization. What you want to do is you want to take a look at what are you after? What are the dreams you're trying to achieve? And figure out which one of those goals match it. When to identify which of those goals matches what you're looking to achieve, it'll help you to begin to identify who are the stakeholders or partners that you need to get in front of, that you need to figure out how to get connected to. And so some of those stakeholders and partners are within your agency at government level. And so there are different US government agencies that are specifically assigned to a particular like industry or vertical, right? So you have agencies that deal with agriculture, agencies that deal with healthcare, agencies that deal with energy. And so you want to identify who those agencies are. And so I have these links here. I am also happy to share this PDF for those who may be interested. And so you want to go into government department agencies. This is the link, and identify which agencies should you be talking to, should you be engaging with, because within those agencies, there are what we call RFPs, requests for proposals. And so these are opportunities for you to pitch your company or your services to bid for awards that would allow you to do some of the activities and provide some of the services that you are saying that you can do within your organization. Then there's also what we call federal advisory committees. You know, when you're looking to increase your IP in the marketplace, it's very important how strategic you become in the committees that you sit on, right? Some of you are just sitting on local committees and citywide committees, and that's okay if your conversation is on a local level and if you're just interested in penetrating the local community. But if you're looking to engage, you know, internationally, you want to look at what are some of the federal advisory committees that I need to sit on, that I need to sit on so that I can have representation. For example, we run a food manufacturing company here in Detroit. I sit on a USDA advisory, trade advisory for processed foods. And so I hear and I see a lot of the policies on a federal level that they're asking for our insights on. And so there are lots of other organizations and businesses who have representation on these committees. And it's so interesting, um, the conversations that are happening at a federal level and how they trickle down to impact us at a local level, right? Sometimes we're fighting on a local level and we don't even realize like we have different people trumping the conversation at a federal level. This is why I always inform people about federal advisory committees and how important it is to do your best to get on one of those committees so you can have a larger say and a larger input on these policies that trickle down and impact us on a local level. And that's how you begin to activate grassroots global relations. First, understanding where your goals sit and measure in terms of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And then when you look at your state and your local, what committees are you sitting on that have any, you know, have pull in those conversations. So that's very, very that's really, really important. Other organizations that you want to consider in getting engaged in, I want to just highlight an organization called Global Ties. Global Ties is a national organization that focuses on citizens diplomacy. Okay. And so what does that mean? They are mainly responsible for housing and supporting and facilitating and serving as liaisons for a lot of the international global exchange programs coming through the US State Department. So if the US State Department has a group of professional leaders coming from, let's say, Ghana, West Africa, Global Ties becomes one of the organizations that hosts them in a state or in a city. So Global Ties Detroit, for example, hosts tons of international professionals from around the world. Now, get this. You ask yourself, well, how do I begin to increase my footprint internationally? Well, you as an organization can partner with Global Ties in many different ways. And when you host some of these professionals, because they all have different verticals that they're looking to engage in, you can host them. And when you host them, there's an opportunity. The opportunity is that you can apply for a reverse exchange. Meaning, if you host someone from Ghana, host someone from Algeria, host someone from France or Portugal, and you host them in your organization, meaning that you are teaching them different strategies and tools. They're supporting you. It's not necessarily like it's free labor. Consider it more like an internship of some sorts. You don't you don't cover any expenses. Those expenses are covered under the program in which brought them here. They essentially you become responsible for training them and providing them that immersive experience. You can then apply for a reverse exchange, meaning you can apply to go to their country and for them to do the same. And it's totally funded, right? You don't come out of pocket for anything. It's funded by the State Department. It's funded by the U.S. government. And so this is just one way, one of many ways where you, as a professional, as a leader, for example, can start building relationships internationally with professionals who are leading in their country. Let me be clear. It is very difficult for a lot of these professionals to make their way to the US. They have to go through high clearance. They have to be doing something amazing in their country. So now you're talking about you're dealing with some of the cream of the crop in their country. And now you build relationship and rapport. And now you get to go into their country and expand your territory and expand your opportunity. I've hosted people from Algeria, Suriname, and I've gotten reverse exchanges to both those countries. Now, you don't have to go even if you get accepted. There is a certain period where you have to let them know that you're unable to go, for example, but the opportunity is available to you and it's fully funded. These are some of the ways you can activate grassroots global relations right from where you are. This is why I keep saying you are not limited by the proximity of your current location, but by the principles you do not practice. Right. And this is the principle of citizen diplomacy. Now, there are a number of other organizations and opportunities to do similar things that I've listed here as well. But Global Ties is one of the leading ones around citizen diplomacy. Now, I'd be remiss not to say that a lot of these initiatives, a lot of these international immersion experiences and programming, I think is highly impacted by the leadership and presidency. And so depending upon leadership and presidency and what they believe about global relations and international policies, some of these programs can be affected and so forth. And so I wanted to kind of bring that to your attention. Now, I know I'm running out of time in terms of sharing, but I want to move you into another opportunity for those who are business owners or nonprofit leaders or organizers. There are so many ways for you to navigate the global international business environment. And I want to share opportunities that are available to you when you understand the organizations that are necessary for you to engage in. And that is, for example, tapping into the United Nations, U.S. Embassy, and more for funding projects. So in addition to business models that will call for you to do business with other businesses, you as a private sector stakeholder or public sector stakeholder can apply to what we call RFPs or grant funding opportunities. We call them awards, right? The US government has all these contracts. For example, the United Nations has all these contracts, and they award private sector stakeholders. They award individual consultants like you and I to bid for these. Now, some of these are considered larger bids, and others are more like contractual TORs, and we'll get into it. And so if you want to diversify your ability to do business in other countries, you want to diversify your global impact, you want to consider these larger organization stakeholders who have contracts and bids and projects, like the Virtual Global Consultant Group. We just finished. It was a smaller bid. It wasn't a lot, but we just finished a bid with the United Nations, and it wasn't even a bid. Let me say this: once we secured our first contract with the United Nations and we did a great job, they come back to you, right? Because you now become their main go-to consultant for this particular area of focus. For us, we are their senior international consultant when it comes to technology. So we built projects for them. We teach technology. We write curriculums for the UN. Contracts are not always so freaking. It really depends on what their needs are. But the point is, you are now in their triangular trade of transactions, and this is another streams of increasing revenue. And so I wanted to bring this to your attention. some of these terms that you see. So procurement, supplier, vendor, RFP, request for proposals, RFQs. People do this a lot on the local level, but understand that this can happen on the international level. There's tenders and there's bids. You can go on to a country's government website and look up tenders and look for bids that way. A lot of the advantages with US based businesses is that oftentimes in other countries, especially developing countries, I don't know, I think sometimes the narrative changes with different leadership in office, but the narrative is usually very positive for US based businesses. They often see us as elite in terms of our service offering. And so, although many times you have to partner with a local entity, you do have great high chances of winning a lot of these tenders and these bids if you know how to put it in and do it right. And so these are some of the strategies that Dr. Namia Jordan Cook and I have used at the Virtual Global Consulting Group to expand our contracts. We won a government award that took us to Zimbabwe to lead a program with our partners on the ground, but we trained rural women on advanced manufacturing technology. And we do so by navigating these terms and these bids. And so TOR is terms of reference. In procurement or project management, this refers to a document that outlines the objectives or scope or responsibilities that are available for you. So some of the projects that you submit for, they're like bids, right? A number of people are doing it. Other times you get a TOR. You get you get a stakeholder in one of these organizations that's like, I want to do business with you. Here's the term of reference. Do you agree with this term of reference? Here's the funding. What I have found with TORs versus RFPs that you bid for, RFPs, you submit your budget and you have to legitimize and justify why your budget is such. And then with TORs, the budget is already established and you have to just kind of choose if that budget works for you or not, right? We've had $2,500 budgets. We've had $20,000 TOR budgets. For us, it's always been about just building the relationship and then increasing our value in the marketplace as we go. So I wanted to bring this to your attention. Other multi-grant funding opportunities, you can find them at USAID, DOS, which is Department of State, MCC, USADF, World Bank. These are other entities that have grants and fundings that you can apply for. I always encourage, and let me back up and say, there are a number of UN organizations. There are about 15 specialized agencies within the UN. So you can take a look to see which one reflects the work that you do and then start kind of navigating it that way to see if there's any bids or funding opportunities that are available to you. But what I will encourage you, and I'll say it's very important to diversify your pool, right? As a business model, there's sometimes where private sector business opportunities, work. Other times you want to go public sector. So in that case, I always encourage people to have a nonprofit entity as well as a for-profit entity, because some of them have different stipulations and certain opportunities are limited depending upon the entity of your organization. Now, I'll end with saying this: if you're looking to seek opportunities within the U.S. embassies around the world, the U.S. embassy is made up of different sections. You have the political section, economic section, public affairs section, consular section. The section that has the most opportunities that are available, particularly for both nonprofit and for-profit, is the public affairs section. So public affairs or public diplomacy, that's usually where the opportunities are for like global exchanges, programming to be pitched to the embassy that can support local needs and challenges. And so you want to kind of look there as well. All right. And that, my friends, I will say, are some of the strategies that you can use to support you in expanding your footprint to go from local to global. And I always say often, you can't speak to someone's shoes you haven't walked. We have walked this journey. We continue to navigate it because it's ever evolving. If you have any questions that you want to ask of me as it pertains to this, feel free to reach out. I'm sure my contact information will be available to you, but you can also visit us at thevgcgroup.com, or you can visit my personal site at thedigitaldiplomat.com. Thank you so much for lending your ear to my voice, and I pray that this session was fruitful to you and you learned a few new things. God bless you.